everyone, Voodoo here, and Season 3 is officially here tomorrow. The patch is out already, but season hasn't started yet, which means it is time for our 11.2 Season 3 Havoc Demon Hunter guide. So this is going to be the all-comprehensive guide. Of course, things might get outdated. I'll post new videos so that happens, but we're going over Raid, talents, Mythic Plus talents, rotation, gear, all the stuff you need to know to play your Havoc Demon Hunter at the start of Season 3 of The War Within. Of course, I'll do more in-depth guides on different things as well, but for now, this is going to be that guide covering everything. Now, if you want a written version, I recommend Wowhead or Icy Veins. I also wrote the FAQ in the Havoc Demon Hunter Discord, so go check that out. And finally, this is my first video I'm recording after hitting 15,000 subscribers, so thank you all so much. We did it before Season 3 even started, which is crazy. You all are amazing, but like, comment, and subscribe to get the button up higher, I guess. So with that, let's start off with the guide. All right, so normally this is my what's new section, but Havoc Demon Hunter was the only spec in Season 3, at least DPS, that do not have a single line of notes in the official patch notes. So there isn't really nothing new. The new stuff is the tier set. I think tier set's impactful enough. I'm going to cover it here. So this season, tier sets are different in the fact that you have both an Aldrachi Reaver tier set and a Fel-Scarred tier set. So each spec has two. For Aldrachi Reaver, the 2 set is that Reaver's glaive damage is increased by 50% and other physical only damage is increased by 25%. The 4-piece, Fury of the Aldrachi, further empowers Blade Dance when cast after Chaos Strike, increasing slashes to 12. Reaver's Mark now stacks up to 3 times, and further empowers Chaos Strike when cast after Blade Dance, applying an additional stack for 100% of normal duration. This is a very powerful tier set. It makes Aldrachi Reaver better at the stuff it already did, but doesn't really change rotation that much. For Fel-Scarred, the 2-piece is Immolation Aura deals 30% increased damage and increases Chaos Strike damage by 20% while active. The 4-piece, entering demon form, now immediately induces a demon surge and shatters a demon soul fragment that grants 20% increased damage for 10 seconds. This is also a very powerful tier set. It doesn't change anything in AOE, it just makes Fel-Scarred better at the things it already did, but it does change things in single target, making a new build and prioritizing Chaos Strike a lot more. This is going to be your best single target build. So both are very strong. Whenever you get 2-piece, you want to swap and play Aldrachi Reaver with it in all scenarios. Once you get your 4 set, you want to equip it, obviously, and use Fel-Scarred in single target and Aldrachi Reaver in the rest. You also can play FelScarred Mythic Plus, but whatever. So there you go. Very powerful tier set stuff. We'll cover this more in depth later, but this is what's new. So, talent builds. Now, first off, this is going to be our best single target build once you have 4-piece. Before you have 4-piece, or if there is a lot of cleave on the fight, then this build is not better. This is also the best no mover build for the season, so I am including it for that purpose. But this is going to be the best single target with 4-piece. Okay. Now, before you have 4-piece, you want to play this build, which is Aldrachi Reaver. Previous one was Fel-Scarred. This is going to be the best with 2-piece or 0-piece of the new season, of course, as well as on any fight with enough cleave. Generally speaking, from what we've experienced so far, the first and second bosses of the raid, so Plexus Sentinel and Lumathar, as well as Fractalus, which is the 6th, are going to be pure single target fights. The rest of them so far seem to have enough cleave to warrant playing this build before you, Aldrachi Reaver. Okay, now that might change as things go along here. Well, I'll update it like always, but this is going to be your cleave build. It's like glaive focused. There's lots of free funnel here with Aldrachi Reaver, Wounded Quarry, lots of free cleave with all the Screaming Brutality stuff. You use Blade Dance a lot in this build. You have Fear the Aldrachi, etc. This is going to be for cleave, and then for pure single target or for a no mover fight, or if you prefer that playstyle, this will be the build. Again, this is only with 4-piece, but the 4-piece and 2-piece really buff up your Immolation Aura as well as your Chaos Strike through Burning Blades. That's kind of how this build works. So links are in the description for both of these. Those are going to be your 2 builds for the raid. For Mythic Plus, this is going to be the build you play in most scenarios. Now, this is Aldrachi Reaver. Havoc has the best funnel in Mythic Plus this upcoming season. You might argue that Arcane or Assassination have very good ones. I believe Havoc's is better, but those 2 specs bring other benefits aside from that. Havoc, of course, has Chaos Brand. You're going to deal a lot of damage to your priority target with reasonable cleave. You won't have the highest AoE or the highest single target, but you'll be reasonably decent at both of them and just do a lot of funnel into mobs that need to die. If you are doing fights or keys that are easy for you at your gear or skill level, so you're not pushing as high as you can, keys are still fairly easy, you're not having a tough time timing things, etc., this build might not perform as good as the FelScarred AOE build, which is this one. Now, again, nothing's really changing in the spec tree, we're just changing our hero talents. This build's going to be better in lower keys or in keystones where you're not, pushing as high as possible. The other build will be better for timing keys. This build is going to have higher overalls when things die really quickly, right? Because a lot of it's going to be burst damage and damage based off of Immolation Aura from Flamebound, from Ragefire, yada, yada, yada. So this is like your lower key / I'm not pushing stuff / I don't want to play Aldrachi Reaver build. And then if you're pushing higher keys, you'll be playing Aldrachi Reaver because this build will have better funnel and thus a better damage profile for timing harder keys. So here we are with the rotation. Now, I just recorded this entire section and then realized my microphone is muted for the whole thing, so I'm not very happy with myself, but we're gonna start off with the FelScarred single target opener. So the main thing with FelScarred here is your Immolation Aura is gonna be very, very powerful, but what you wanna do is Immolation Aura 2 seconds before pull, Sigil Flame 1 second before pull, use your potion, and then hunt in. Then you're gonna use every charge of Immolation Aura you have available, even if it procs, keep using them. Then use I-Beam, Annihilation, Death Sweep, Meta, Immolation Aura, Annihilation, I-Beam, Essence Break, and then use a bunch of Chaos Strikes here until Immolation Aura expires. Then you're going to use Death Sweep, Immolation Aura, Sigil of Flame, and then go into your regular rotation. So your regular rotation for FelScarred has effectively 2 components to it: your Immolation Aura usage and playing around with your I-Beam and Essence Break windows. For Immolation Aura usage, the main thing when you're outside of meta is that you want to always not be capped, right? So if you're ever at 2 charges, boom, just use an Immolation Aura. If you get a Fire Inside proc there and you get another one, just use it again. Now note, if you have 5 Immolation Auras active, don't push it again. You can only have 5 total, 4 for Consuming Fire, which is the meta version. So if you're at that point, obviously don't push it, but otherwise you want to just not cap on it. The other thing you want to do is use it before you use Essence Break, roughly 2 seconds before. And then if you have any left over, you want to use them before I-Beam, as long as you'll still have it for Essence Break. And you're probably wondering, Voodoo, don't we pair those together? Well, it's true that for most of the fight you will. If you have less than 4 stacks of Cycle of Hatred, so see here I have 3, you actually will just Essence Break on cooldown. So if I just beam here, right, let's say I don't have an Essence Break, whatever, I'm in my beam combo, whatever, and then Essence Break comes up now, I would just use Immolation Aura, then use Essence Break, and then just Chaos Strike without being in demon form. The reason for this is because we don't actually use I-Beam in meta after the one that procs Demon Surge because of our tier set, right? Because it doesn't work in meta. So because of that, things get desynced. Now, they do sync back up again at your second meta. So if you're using Essence Break on cooldown, 40 seconds as much as you can, it will all sync back up naturally for your second meta and beyond, and won't really be that big of a difference. For your I-Beam combos, though, what you want to do is Immolation Aura, then Beam, and then you want to save Death Sweep until the very last GCD so that you can extend your buff. So we use it here, boom, we also get another Annihilation out of it. Because while you're in the animation of Death Sweep, meta form cannot drop, and because of the fact that we have so much haste and whatever, the animation of Death Sweep lasts longer than the GCD, so you can fit another Annihilation in there. Otherwise, we don't use Blade Dance that often. If we don't have Immolation Aura up, you will use Blade Dance, and then in meta, if you have Immolation Aura but are missing either the Demon Soul buff or a Trinket, you'll use it. That doesn't happen very often, but otherwise, as long as Immolation Aura is up, you are going to prioritize Chaos Strike as much as possible, unless, of course, Death Sweep will proc a Demon Surge like I showed you there, right? So again, to recap, Immolation Aura, you want to make sure you're not capping on your charges, having a charge for every Essence Break, and then using the rest on I-Beam if you're under 4 stacks of Cycle of Hatred. You want to only Blade Dance if you don't have Immolation Aura up, or if you will proc a Demon Surge from it. And when you do, you want to make sure it's the last global in your Demon meta form so that you can extend it and get an extra Annihilation in there. So that's the basics. Use, Hunt on cooldown, Sigil Flame on cooldown, everything else on cooldown. If you want a written explanation, check out Wildhead or Icy Veins or the Havoc Fac in the Havoc Demon Hunter Discord. which I wrote. Now for Aldrachi Reaver, the good news is that it plays the exact same as in Season 2. So if you've played Havoc before this season, then you already know how to play Aldrachi Reaver. But for those who don't, we're going to go over it. Now I am playing the Inertia build here because it is technically our strongest build, and you know, the best players will play it. Exergy is 1% behind and is going to be very, very viable and probably the play for 99% of players. I'll probably do it anyways. But we're going to show Inertia because it is the one that is harder to play. If at any point I say use Fellblade here and you're not playing Inertia, you're playing Exergy, ignore that, don't push Fellblade. That's the only difference. So with that, we're going to start off with Immolation Aura 2 seconds before pull, Sigil of Flame, then all Trinkets and Potion, Hunt in, throw out our Reaver's Glaive, then we're going to I-Beam, Annihilation, Fellblade, Essence Break, Death Sweep, Vengeful Retreat, and Meta at the same time, Death Sweep again, 2 Annihilations, Fellblade, I-Beam, and then Sigil of Suffering, or Elysian Decree, whatever you want to call it. And from there, we will be going into our regular rotation. The regular rotation for an Aldrachi Reaver can be broken down into 3 major sections, basically. What to do in general, how to use your Reaver's Glaive, and then your Essence Break combos. We'll start with Reaver's Glaive. So Reaver's Glaive wants to be used to keep up 2 different buffs. You want to keep up Reaver's Mark 100% of the time, which should be pretty easy to do as long as there's no like gigantic downtime on the boss. So you want to keep this up as much as possible. The second one is to keep up the Thrill of the Fight damage buff as much as you can. And the way you do this is that whenever Thrill of the Fight has like 3 or 4 seconds left on it, throw your Reaver's Glaive. Now there's a reason for this, and that is because the damage portion, the 15%, actually double dips on Reaver's Glaive. This is a bug, it's been around for a long time though, so no idea if they'll fix it. And because of this, we want to always throw our glaive in the previous thrill window whenever possible. Otherwise, just throw it if Reaver's Mark is going to drop, or you're about to do an Essence Break combo. Because we want to do it more in single target to keep up buffs, it doesn't actually matter if we use Chaos Strike first or Blade Dance first. We will only use whichever one is available. So if we throw our glaive, right, and Blade Dance is available, we'll use that first and then Chaos Strike. But if we get another glaive and we throw it, right, and Blade Dance is not available, we will just Chaos Strike until Blade Dance is available and then push it. Okay, so in single target, the order doesn't matter. If you're cleaving, because you are going to play this build on a cleave fight, then you do want to use Blade Dance second to get all the cleave off of that. But otherwise, if you're just fighting one target, order does not matter. And the other thing is going to be your Essence Break window. And I'm just going to grab a glaive here so I can show you guys better. So when you're approaching your Essence Break window, if Blade Dance will be used, in like 2 or 3 seconds before Essence Break, I will hold it. Otherwise, just going to rip it. But if we have a glaive, boom, we'll throw it. We'll say this comes up pretty soon, so I'm going to hold this. Then we're going to backflip and I-Beam at the same time. Fellblade in, Essence Break, Death Sweep, and then just 2 Annihilations again. So the reason for that is because we do get a more powerful Death Sweep because of one of these things here, where the first and second ability deal more damage. So 10% for the first, 20% for the second. So this does empower onto your Essence Break. But otherwise, again, only if Blade Dance will be ready with like 3 seconds left. Otherwise, you want to just send it. It doesn't really matter there. For Inertia, basically you want to just send them all to buff your Death Sweeps, right? So boom, I-Beam, Inertia in, Death Sweep. Otherwise, just use them all to buff, your Essence Breaks, right? Death Sweep is very, very powerful for Aldrachi Reaver as opposed to for FelScarred, where we never push it. And you want to use it as much as possible. There will be some weird holds you have to do a little bit after meta to just sync up IV and Essence Break, but for Aldrachi Reaver, always use Essence Break in demon form. It is not the same as FelScarred. So in general, the rotation will be like Blade Dance as much as possible. Use all your sigils high priority, use the Hunt, unless you have another charge of Reaver's Glaive available. Do your Essence Break combo, and then just like fill in with Chaos Strikes and Fury Generational abilities. Your meta combo will be the same each time, so if you memorize the opener, you can do that every time you get meta. And then for your glaive, you want to throw it so that it's in the buff window of Thrill of the Fight for 15% damage, and also just keeping up Reaver's Mark whenever possible. If you want a longer explanation of this, check out the Wowhead guide or the Icy Veins guide, both written by great people, or go to the Havoc Demon Hunter Discord, which is linked in the description, and check out the fact there, which I myself wrote. The final part is going to be our AOE, which for this video, I will just use Aldrachi Reaver. I will drop full guides for both FelScarred and Aldrachi Reaver because they are both viable, but for this video, it's going to run long. I'm just going to do the recommended build. So for this one, again, it's going to be pretty straightforward. It's not really a mover build. You have initiative because it's so powerful, and you can use VR every now now and then, but it's not like, you know, anything crazy. And really it's just all about Immolation Aura and Glaives. So we are going to do our stuff. We'll use Sigil of Flame pre-pull, use any potions and trinkets here, hunt in, use your Reaver's Glaive, mark your primary target, then use Blade Dance, then use all your charges of Immolation Aura up to 5, then I-Beam, then Annihilation, use your Death Sweep again, Vengeful Retreat and meta, Death Sweep again, Annihilation, I-Beam, and then Sigil of Spite. At this point, you should have multiple Glaives. Throw that out again and move into your primary rotation. So for AOE, the rotation here is going to be even easier than in single target. Your main damage is going to come from Reaver's Glaive and Immolation Aura and I-Beam. So the main thing here is don't cap in your Immolation Aura. Just use those whenever you'll be buffed by Thrill of the Fight and Initiative whenever possible. Use your I-Beam on cooldown. Again, buff it by Thrill of the Fight whenever possible. Thrill of the Fight here, 15%. Otherwise, it will all be about your Reaver's Glaive usage. Now, the Reaver's Glaive usage is going to be based on Thrill of the Fight uptime, but it's even easier here because you basically always want to Blade Dance second. You never want to use Blade Dance first. What this means is that you don't have to really think. You just throw it, Chaos Strike, Blade Dance. On top of that, you'll notice that in the opener I did Blade Dance, then I-Beam. Reason for that is that we do want our Thrill of the Fight buff up whenever we use our big hitting abilities like Immolation Aura, like I-Beam. So we'll use all of our Immolation Aura charges here, use I-Beam, and then everything will be buffed and everything will be nice and happy. So pretty much Reaver's Glaive will just be used to, keep Thrill up, to buff your I-Beam, and if you just don't already have charges to be used, because they'll wipe themselves. Otherwise, rotation and AOE for Havoc is pretty straightforward. You want to just use everything on cooldown. Your Vengeful Retreat resets you want to use to buff on Boda charges whenever you can. So boom, I'll buff there to crit, and then it'll also buff my I-Beam. So it's like you sync it to I-Beam, but basically you're going to be syncing it to whenever you have a Fury of the Aldrachi buffed Reaver's Glaive here, or Blade Dance, because that is where a lot of your damage comes from. And then meta here is just kind of used to reset I-Beam and reset Death Sweep. That's really it. Doesn't really do much else in this build. So if you have I-Beam and Death Sweep on cooldown, you can just kind of meta, get it all back. That's basically it, right? Like, it's really not that big of rotational impact here for AOE. So just use your Reaver's Glaive so that you always have Thrill up as much as possible. Always Blade Dance second and try and get Immolation Aura and I-Beam in your Thrill windows. Otherwise, use Immolation Aura, use Death Sweep, use Chaos Strike. There you go. All right, so you have rotation. Obviously now is time for stats. Stats for Havoc, obviously this whole expansion have stayed the same, and that trend will continue. Critical Strike and then Mastery will be your best, followed by Haste and Versatility for Raid, with Versatility and Haste swapping for Mythic Plus. Now the thing here is that this season we are getting so far into the diminishing returns that you might start to see some Haste actually gain value, specifically for FelScarred, but also a bit for Aldrachi Reaver. Now, you still don't really want to gear for it, but at a certain point when you have a lot of crit and you have a lot of mastery, your sims might start to tell you to get a little bit more haste on your items. As always, please sim yourself. You can just grab Critical Strike and Mastery items and just roll with it and do the best, but if you want to be the best you can and optimize your character as much as you can, please be simming yourself with each new item you get, as well as Droptimizer. This is going to be the best way to get new upgrades. All right, so to recap, Critical Strike and Mastery is the best for all scenarios. Haste is third best and Verse is fourth best in Raid. In Mythic Plus, Verse is third best and Haste is fourth best. That's stats. Let's talk about gear. So we're going to talk about tier sets really quickly. I covered them at the start of this video. Again, they're very good. You want to upgrade them pretty much right away. If you are someone who is only going to play Fel-Scarred, you're not going to touch Aldrachi Reaver at all, then your 2 set's actually a bit of a downgrade. You want to only upgrade that at about, I believe, like 1 or 2 eye level jumps above. Otherwise, you want to grab your 2-piece as soon as possible, play Aldrachi Reaver with it, and then once you grab your 4-piece, again as soon as possible, you switch and play Fel-Scarred in single target, Aldrachi Reaver in the rest of them. So want to touch that up really quickly just to cover it. With that, let's go on to the rest of the gearing. I also want to cover, before we get to trinkets, the special items this season. So left over from last season is the disc belt, the Titan belt as some people call it, from the 11.1.7 patch. This belt is very powerful. You do want to pick it up if you don't have it yet, at least for early on in the season. Your best power is going to be critical chain, which is from the Skittering Breach Delve. The reason this belt's so good is because it has just a crazy proc. It is 701 item level, but it does punch much above its weight, and you won't replace this until you have a 714 item level belt or higher. 714 is roughly 3 out of 6 mythic, so realistically speaking, you won't replace this belt for a little while. Eventually you can craft in that slot or get one for mythic or whatever, but for a long time you'll be using this belt and using it very well. The other new thing are the Reshi wraps, which is a new cloak coming this season. The cloak itself doesn't have a lot of customization to it. You just pick it up from the quest chain, so I'm not really going to cover that, but it does have a socket to choose what stats you get from it. Generally speaking, you want to use pure precise fiber as the crit one, but if you have a lot of crit, you might see yourself possibly wanting to use the haste one in single target or the mastery one in AoE. But as a general rule, you want to use the crit ones. Pure precise fiber is a crafting recipe for tailors, so you might have to do an order for that. Otherwise, you can just buy the precise fiber from the guy who gives you the cloak. However, this is a 33% decrease in stats, so generally speaking, you want to get this. And then the only rare item for Havoc this season are the boots from Soul Hunters, the Reshi buffing boots. I don't remember the name of them off the top of my head, in the raid. If you don't raid, don't worry about it, but basically this boots increases the frequency at which your Reshi wraps proc. The Reshi wrap for DPS is a damage proc. It's a very, very strong damage proc, so you want to get these. At Mythic, it's a 50% increase, Heroics 40, Normal's 30, and LFR is 20% increase to the frequency, so you do want to get a Mythic one. Sorry, but even like heroic or normal at 40 or 30% is a pretty sizable increase, in LFR you might start to get beat by eye level stuff. Very, very strong. You loot roughly 1 pair of boots per 10 raid members that kill this boss. So you have 20 players, you'll get 2, 30 players, you'll get 3, and so on. It's like tier. So good luck, hope you get them. Everyone wants these basically. So next, we're gonna talk about crafted gear. Now, crafting is the exact same as it's been this whole expansion because embellishments don't scale with eye level anymore and thus are bad. But pretty much what you wanna do is you want to craft a weapon first if you have low item level weapons and put Ascension on this. Follow that up with a wrist item with Writhing Armor banding. If you only do Mythic Plus and you don't raid at all, instead I would just craft 2 Dawn Silken Linings and just like not embellish your weapon. But crafting a weapon first is basically always going to be your best option. The only slots we have this tier for embellishments are going to be your weapon, your wrists, and your belt. There are no other choices for like Dawn Silk or anything like that, unless you're playing some weird off-meta thing, which I don't even want to cover here. Every other slot is filled with a high priority important item, or is just such a high stat budget you don't want to craft into it. So those are basically your only options for crafting for embellishments. Fill the rest of your sparks just on pieces you don't need, really. All right, so the final part of gearing is going to be trinkets. So trinkets this season are weird because every single thing wants a different trinket. That's just how it is. FelScarred and Aldrachi Reaver want different ones. The one trinket that is shared amongst everything for Mythic Plus, for Raid, for all the builds is Astral Antennae from the Lumathar boss. It is a crit trinket. It procs a little orb that sucks towards you. The orbs pick up fairly easily, so don't worry about that too much, but it's going to be one of the best ones to get. For FelScarred in Raid, you want to get Araz's Ritual Forge, which is a 2-minute on use from Forge Reader Araz in the Mana Forge Raid. Pretty straightforward. And then for Aldrachi Reaver, you want to get Sigil of the Cosmic Hunt to pair with Antennae from the Soul Hunters in the Mana Forge Omega Raid. Pretty straightforward there. For Mythic Plus, you want to use a Soleil's Secret Technique from the Tazavesh Soleil's Gambit dungeon. Again, this pairs with Astral Antennae. If someone in your party can give you Critical Strike or Mastery. If no one in your party can give you Critical Strike or Mastery, then an on-use is very good, the best one being Unyielding Nether Prism from Fractalus in the Mana Forge Omega Raid. If you don't raid at all, then Pacemaker can fill the void of Antenna, although it's been nerfed this season, and Signet Other Priority is a decent on-use to run to replace Prism. Finally, we're going to talk about consumables. So things are pretty much the same across the board here. For a file, you want to use Flask of Alchemical Chaos. For food, use Jester's Board. If feasts are available, they can be eaten. It's like a 100 to 300 DPS loss, but That's so minor, who cares? For a potion, you want to pick up Tempered Potions, and for weapon buffs, you want to use Aldrachi Mana Oil. For enchants, just enchant yourself with like Critical Strike stuff, you can sim it. For gems, you want to use one Blast of Might for crit, and then one of each kind of gem, and then fill the rest in with Critical Strike and Mastery. But if you want a more detailed list, I would just recommend checking out Wowhead or Icy Veins. They have a good breakdown of it all, and it's just kind of too long to digest in a video format. All right, everybody, so there we have it with the initial guide for Havoc Demon Hunter in Season 3 of The War Within, the final one of this expansion. I do want to just say thanks everybody for watching it. Of course, if you have questions, please join my Discord down below, ask anything there. I also wrote the FAQ, frequently asked questions, in the Havoc Discord, which is also linked in the description, so go check that out as well. And Shad and WordUp do great jobs at keeping up to date the Wowhead and Icy Veins guides as well. They're up there, and there are other Havoc channels on YouTube as well. Jedith, Shadarek, Neff, to name a few, who are also very, very good and put out great guides. If you have questions, myself or any of those other sources can answer them for you. I'm almost certain of it. We have a very, I don't want to say tight-knit, but we all collaborate on this information, so everybody should be saying the same things, and anybody is going to be a reliable source of information. So hope you guys enjoyed. Again, any questions, drop them below. Thank you so much for 15,000 subscribers. If you want to have stuff, watch me live as well. I'll be live a lot this week on Twitch. It's linked in the description, just Voodoosaurus, doing the new raid, doing dungeons, that kind of thing, and just grinding the new season, because, you know, season launch is always a really fun time. So hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope you found it useful. Again, if you have any questions, let me know. Thanks for 15,000 subscribers. Like, comment, subscribe to boost that number higher, and I'll see you guys later. Peace. A big thank you to all of my channel members. Thank you to Correlated, Alexander Trifonovich, Fear Redefined, Loose Change, Zooligan, Gabriel Correa, Magic Man 133, Falafadar, and Dark Terror. Again, a big thank you to everyone who watches my videos, but especially a big thank you for people who are helping support the channel. If you want to support the channel, become a channel member down below for a few perks. More to come in the future. And with that, again, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you guys later. Peace.